Hello, this is Dr. Grande. Today I will analyze the case of Johnny Somali. First, I'll look at the background of this case, including the timeline of the controversy, then move to my analysis. Ramzi Khalid Ismail was born on September 26, 2000, and lived in Phoenix, Arizona. He goes by the name Johnny Somali. Johnny has offered conflicting information about his background, and some of his claims are just about impossible to believe. For example, he claimed that he had once been a pirate and a child soldier. In May 2023, Johnny became a live streamer. His show would feature him functioning as a tourist in a variety of countries. For example, he spent time in South Korea, Thailand, Indonesia, Japan, and Israel. Johnny was on the social media platform Twitch. After he was banned there, he went to Kick, but that platform banned him in May 2024. He also released content on Rumble and Party. Over the years, Johnny has earned a reputation for aggravating innocent bystanders by engaging in irritating and culturally insensitive behavior. Here are just a few examples of how Johnny managed to get himself in trouble. In Japan, Johnny harassed citizens by making comments about the atomic bombs that the Americans dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki near the end of World War II. While he was on a subway, he threatened the riders by saying, "We're going to drop another atomic bomb." In June 2023, Johnny entered the Tokyo Disney Resort, where he antagonized people by playing music which featured the term atomic bomb. 2 months later, Johnny was arrested for allegedly trespassing at a construction site in Osaka, where he referenced a notorious 2011 nuclear power plant disaster. Later, this charge was dismissed. In September 2023, Johnny played loud music and noises on his phone at a restaurant. He was arrested and charged with conspiracy of obstruction of business. Johnny was found guilty of this charge in January 2024. He was banned from Japan after being fined $1,400. On March 25, 2024, when Johnny was in Tel Aviv, Israel, he was attacked and beaten by a group of people after he provoked them. On April 5, Johnny live-streamed from the Western Wall in Jerusalem. This is a retaining wall that has religious significance for a few different religious belief systems, including Judaism and Christianity. Johnny live-streamed as he held pictures of Jeffrey Epstein and Harvey Weinstein. 2 days later, on April 7, he was at a protest in Tel Aviv. He was detained for a few minutes after allegedly harassing a female police officer. Later, Johnny claimed that he witnessed a mass shooting at a restaurant. On September 27, 2024, Johnny found himself in Seoul, South Korea. He harassed people on a subway by playing obscene noises, and he was thrown off a bus for playing North Korean music. On October 7, Johnny approached a South Korean landmark called the Statue of Peace, which was constructed to recognize Korean women victimized by Japanese soldiers during Japan's occupation of Korea from 1910 to 1945. Johnny kissed the statue and engaged in activity he considered to be dancing. Later that same month, Johnny continued to aggravate people in South Korea. For example, he approached pedestrians while carrying a bag of rotten fish, harassed people on a bus and on a subway by playing loud music and showcasing his version of dancing, and on October 17, he caused a disturbance in a convenience store by playing loud music, spilling a cup of noodles, and throwing noodles. On October 24, Johnny was punched in the face while live streaming, probably due to his antagonistic behavior. He was also physically attacked on 2 other occasions. On November 2, Johnny was barred from leaving South Korea. On November 6, 2024, Johnny released a video where he apologized for his offensive behavior at the Statue of Peace. He claimed that he did not understand the significance of the statue, and he was truly sorry for being disrespectful. Eventually, Johnny was charged with 2 counts of obstruction of business and 2 counts of violating the Minor Crimes Act. At least some of these offenses appear to be connected to the October 17 convenience store incident with the flying noodles. Johnny was scheduled to appear in court on March 7, 2025. He arrived an hour late, claiming that he was suffering from a stomachache. Johnny demonstrated disrespectful behavior in court. For example, he tried to wear a Make America Great Again hat in the courtroom, despite there being a rule against wearing hats, and he he directed mocking gestures at someone in the gallery. Ultimately, Johnny pleaded guilty to one charge of obstruction of business and guilty to 2 violations of the Minor Crimes Act. It appears as though Johnny was not aware that he was facing an additional obstruction of business charge. He is scheduled to return to court on April 9, 2025, to deal with that charge. Johnny is facing up to 10 years in prison just for the 2 obstruction of business charges. It's also very likely that he will be banned from South Korea. This ban could be permanent. Perhaps in an effort to ensure the longest prison sentence possible, Johnny made a curious statement to South Korean reporters after his court appearance, saying, quote, "Korea is a subordinate country of the United States," unquote. Now moving to my analysis. Here are my thoughts on a few areas that stood out to me in this case. Item number 1. Johnny Somali is kind of like a less sophisticated version of the pranksters who are so popular on social media. He could be described as a nuisance streamer, sadistic troll, and a serial troublemaker. Without exception, I find the content of social media pranksters to be senseless, but Johnny somehow manages to produce videos that are even worse than his competitors. His live stream videos are rambling, pointless, mindless, disorganized, chaotic, offensive, and boring. Johnny simply walks around in public places and looks for ways to antagonize people who are minding their own business. He deliberately goes out of his way to ensure that people will despise him and physically attack him. Johnny has made various excuses for his behavior, which are insincere and nonsensical. For example, he claimed his actions were permissible because he is an American citizen, and his phone was infected by a virus from China, which caused it to uncontrollably play loud music. Item number 2. Even though Johnny has attracted a lot of attention, he has not really been successful based on the number of views or followers. He is nowhere near the popularity of some of the well-known pranksters and troublemakers on social media. Repeatedly getting banned from platforms is not helping Johnny to grow his audience. This has left people wondering how he is paying for this travel-based lifestyle. How can Johnny afford to travel to all these countries and make these videos? It can't be cheap. He has many costs, like hotels, food, and legal expenses. Donations collected through his live stream efforts would cover some of his expenses, but it's hard to imagine he's making enough to be profitable. I think it's more likely that Johnny is operating at a loss in a desperate bid to capture social media stardom. Item number 3. What do I think happened in this case? This is just a theory, my opinion. Johnny Somali appears to be self-centered, grandiose, impulsive, irresponsible, disorganized, erratic, attention-seeking, sensation-seeking, and sadistic. He falsely believes he is special, he has no insight, has no sense of shame, has an intense need for admiration, has a sense of entitlement, and is exceedingly creepy. There is the sense that Johnny does not appreciate the consequences of his behavior, or he believes the consequences are worth it. His quest for fame, combined with the absence of any skill or talent, has left Johnny without many options. Provoking people is the only ability he has, and he believes this will bring him fame on social media. He has managed to gain notoriety, which is similar, but it is difficult to transform into a profitable enterprise. Johnny has not generated a lot of views for himself, but his misadventures have created and maintained this massive industry of social media influencers who criticize him on a regular basis. These influencers are racking up millions of views making videos which point out how Johnny is incompetent, cringeworthy, hazardous, and offensive. They focus on every little detail of his behavior. He may not be paying his own bills, but he is certainly putting a lot of money in the pockets of others. A conspiracy theorist might look at this and think, is there some type of business arrangement at play? Is Johnny a performance artist providing a controversial topic for these other influencers in exchange for money? I don't think that's what's happening for a few reasons, including how Johnny does not appear to be that sophisticated. Also, Johnny has found himself in real trouble with the law. If he was operating under some type of deal with influencers, going to prison and being banned from South Korea would not be a good way to keep the business alive. I think Johnny is simply trapped by his own pathetic and doomed quest for glory. Visiting countries only to insult, threaten, and harass their citizens is a dangerous business, Johnny could end up in prison, injured, or dead. The only thing which may save him from being repeatedly beaten is being banned from these countries. Perhaps a prison sentence would be the best outcome for Johnny because it would force him to rethink his failing strategy. However, Johnny appears to have an insatiable desire to destroy his life, chasing something he will never catch. His entire existence is connected to the misguided belief that antagonism equals entertainment, notoriety equals fame, and a few marginally popular videos are worth a lifetime of burning every bridge that he crosses. Johnny set out to find people who would adore him. Instead, he found those who rejoice in every minute detail of his downfall. He believes they laugh with him, but they're actually laughing at him. After Johnny is done embarrassing himself, the attention of the public will shift somewhere else, and Johnny will be alone, destitute, and forgotten. For Johnny, no consequence could possibly be more painful than irrelevance, but that outcome is guaranteed. Those are my thoughts in the case of Johnny Somali. Thank you so much for watching. I'll talk to you soon. As I mentioned, a lot of people watch the kind of content that Johnny Somali produces because they're really kind of laughing at the content creator. Like they look at Johnny and all his different misadventures, and they find amusement in his failure. But there are some people who watch Johnny and other similar pranksters and troublemakers and genuinely enjoy their behavior. Like, figuratively speaking, they're right there with Johnny. They're next to him, enjoying these different moments when he insults people, offends people, and threatens people. Like, they really find that to be incredibly enjoyable. They think that he's onto something. They think that he is actually entertaining. Research tells us that people who are low in sadism have the opposite reaction when looking at a prankster. They get disgusted, offended, and don't want anything to do with the prankster's behavior. They just want to move on and find something else to view. So when people are attracted to pranksters, does that mean they have a high level of sadism? Well, you can't really assess sadism based on one question. But in general, yes, somebody who is attracted to pranksters has a greater risk of having a high score of sadism. In order for somebody to know if they're high in sadism, they would need a more thorough assessment than that one question. But sure, there is this general tendency for people who are disgusted by pranksters to have low sadism, and people who are attracted to pranksters to have a higher level. That doesn't mean that the sadism will necessarily lead to problems. It doesn't mean the level is through the roof or anything. But again, there's a tendency. So one could argue it's a quick and low validity method to assess sadism. Certainly, I think it is a little worrisome when you see a person who is extremely attracted to pranksters. Now, watching a prankster once in a while and laughing, that's one thing. But if somebody is really spending a lot of their time just immersed in all this prankster content, or the general troublemaker like we see with Johnny Somali, that's probably not a reassuring sign. Like, I think that's worth having some level of concern. If it's a small amount of content, again, that's one thing. But if somebody's really committing their whole life to this destructive, antisocial content, then that's less than healthy. At least there's the potential that it's less than healthy. One can make the argument that these pranksters make their living finding people who have characteristics that are similar to them. Not the people they harass in the streets, but the people who watch them. So that's something to be on the lookout for, but again, you can't really look at just one metric and say, well, that shows that somebody is not sadistic or that somebody is sadistic. In order for a mental health assessment to have high quality, it needs to be comprehensive.